Welcome to the Zoë Routh Leadership Podcast, where we explore the future and what this means for your leadership. We ask the big questions. What's happening on the horizon? What does this mean for us? And most importantly, what skills do I need now for leadership of the future? It's time to explore. Let's go.
Well, hello there. Hope you are well and welcome back to the show. Very exciting episode today, talking about some really juicy stuff and some amazing stories. On Planet Human, I've been watching The Three-Body Problem on Netflix. It's based on a very popular sci-fi novel. And The Three-Body Problem is essentially a science issue. How do you resolve a planet that revolves around three different suns? And it's unpredictable, apparently. I think that's an accurate translation of what is the three-body problem. But the whole series addresses the Fermi paradox. And I had to go and Google that to make sure I had that correct. And the Fermi paradox is the identification that there is a high likelihood of existence of life somewhere out there in the universe. There's so many stars with so many planets. What's the likelihood, the probability of a planet like ours existing in the Goldilocks zone of habitable, life-affirming, life-supporting environmental conditions? Highly likely. The paradox is, if it's highly likely, there has been no conclusive evidence of life elsewhere. So how do we resolve that? It's highly likely leads to the question of, where is everybody? Where are these other life forms? What are they going to be like? So there births a whole bunch of sci-fi exploring what it'd be like for first contact with an alien species, a species that is not Earth-based. And there's two main approaches to that. One idea is that if they have reached space travel capability, advanced civilizations where they could travel between stars, then it's possible they've evolved beyond survival conflicts. Like we haven't as humans. We are still in conflict, unfortunately. And wouldn't it be great to meet a society that has evolved beyond that and that conflict is no longer an issue and it's neither is basic survival? That's sort of one stream of thinking about first contact. Another stream thinking about first contact is if they're traveling from their star systems, they're looking for another place to live, and therefore competition and survival elements are there. Therefore, we need to be in defensive mode when it comes to first contact of alien civilizations. Who knows? Likely it's going to be a mess when it happens, because no one can imagine what is out there, really, without any evidence or anything, but are based on our imagination and projection of what we know. There's so much we do not know. Why do I put this up as part of Planet Human? Because it is central to our consideration of our long-term strategy as a species. Are we going to just bury our head in the sand and try and eke out the existence on our planet, which is doomed to boil dry in 2 billion years? Or are we going to do something about keeping our species and consciousness going beyond our planet? This is not our everyday challenge, of course. Everyday challenges, I need a job, I need to put food on the table, clothing on my family, roof over the head, etc. And yet, if we don't consider these problems, there'll be no future for that either. These are the kinds of thoughts I wrestle with and put into my fiction. Speaking of fiction, on Planet Zoe, we have a live in-person book launch coming up on May the 30th here in Canberra at the Shine Dome. You can register for that. It's free. Come along and hear behind the scenes insights into the book, have a chance to win the book, purchase the book, or any of my other books, and just come and celebrate the publication of my 7th book, my 3rd novel, and the 3rd novel in this Gaia series. So that's happening on 30th of May at the Shine Dome. The link for the registration will be in the show notes. And that's what's happening on Planet Zoe. In the meantime, my leadership question for you is, do you want to read people like a spy? How do spies read people? It's very exciting. My guest today is JJ Brun. He is a French Canadian. And so, yeah, we have fun with that. He is known as the retired spy, which caught my eye immediately because it's one of my favorite genre fiction is spy movies and spy literature. Anyway, here's a real spy. He is also a 3-time award-winning speaker. He's a best-selling author. He's a master trainer of DISC, which is one of the tools I use in my leadership work in terms of understanding how people think and act and linking those two things together as a people insight reader. He's had 15 years in the Canadian Armed Forces in the intelligence branch, and we have some amazing stories. He has amazing stories to share. So without further ado, here is JJ Brun. Well, all the way from Gatineau, Quebec, we have Jean-Jacques Joseph Brun, otherwise known as JJ Brun. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I've been really excited for this interview because I am a spy thriller nerd. I love all stories about spies. And I'm a little bit afraid too, because I suspect that some of my excitement around the spy life may have my bubble burst in terms of it's not James Bond and it's maybe a little bit more mundane, or maybe it's not. So I'm so looking forward to hearing your perspective and your background on spy and people. So first of all, big question. Why did you become a spy?
I never intended to. It was more of an exit strategy for me. When I was studying at the Ottawa University in Sudbury, Ontario, I had a fight with Dad one weekend, and I decided that was it. And I left the university and I joined the military. I was tired to be told what to do. And so you went into the military? Yes.
Because they don't tell you what to do there.
Yeah. No, they don't. No. But as a 19-year-old, right, you think you know the world. You think you know everything. And I was more of out of control in regards to my temperament style. And I didn't receive the insights or the education from my dad. And I just basically pulled pin, and the military was an exit strategy. From there, Dad was there when I graduated from the boot camp. And then from there, was because that was a 10-week program. And then you go into 16 weeks of pure hell going through the combat arms. So with the Le Royal 22e Régiment, so it's the French regiment. And I succeeded, as in I had a very good experience. And I progressed rapidly in the military. What takes you 8 years to acquire to become a sergeant within the military, I did it in 3 years and 10 months, which is a blessing and it's a curse. So the old guard doesn't like the fact that you progress rapidly, but I was a new generation. I was bigger, stronger, bilingual, computer literate. I was the new up-and-coming soldier that the Army was looking for. And because it was a blessing and a curse, well, I said, I don't need to have all of these challenges. So then I was looking for another exit strategy. And the only trade that interested me was the intelligence branch. I thought, well, that's cool. That's sexy. That's exclusive. I was attracted to that for some reason. Today, I understand why, because I better understand myself and why I was attracted to that area. So I did 5 years in the combat arms. I have one operational tour, Cyprus. So for me, it was peacekeeping back then. And then I have 15 years within the intelligence branch. And within the intelligence branch, I specialize in the field of human intelligence. And that's where I got branded. My claim to fame back then was my second tour. And back then it was Bosnia. We had a war in Bosnia. So I was selected or volunteered to be the first ever contact handler since the Second World War. Now, a contact handler is a person where he or she is sent into a hostile environment, where he or she has to cultivate sources within that environment, determines people's intention and modify their behaviors. In other words, present an idea and get them to buy into for them to become more of an informant or take the role of an informant, so that we can have a sense of what's happening on the terrain, and our commanding authority or our leadership can attribute the proper resources in the proper place to maintain the peace. So that was sort of my claim to fame. And then I was recommended for advanced operations, but that did not exist back then because we first started. And I was sent back to the school in the UK to teach and to train. So
the spy school?
Yes, I would. It was the first time I visited the UK. All I heard was, "Who wants to go to the UK?" Well, I raised my hand. I was looking around. Nobody was raising that. Well, I'd like to go to the UK. So they sent me on a prisoner handling and tactical questioning. So it's an interrogator course. And I'm like, I was just excited. I was going to go all expense paid trip to the UK. And that was surreal because back then we didn't have a phone. We didn't have the internet so much. Everything was on paper. So I flew from Canada to Heathrow. And then that's an experience when you land because it's in the morning, but everything is reversed, left and right. So crossing the road, I tend to look on the left, but you're supposed to look on the right because that's where the vehicles will come in a different direction. Taking a taxi and just taking a British cab, it's fun. It's just different. And then going to the train station. Now I'm living a Harry Potter moment. I'm like, oh my gosh, this old train station. And then you get into that caboose, or it's just a very old train. And then it's just forever. And then you're just seeing the landscape and you don't even know where you're going. You're just looking for when is this town going to arrive? Because that's where I'm supposed to come out. And when I arrived at that town, it was a shack. It was just a little shack, as in, okay, how am I going to get to that undeclared base that I'm supposed to go to? Then there's this car, which is just a car. I think it was the first Uber ever, as in he was a taxi. Got in there, and then I showed him the name of where I needed to go. Didn't understand what he was saying to me. Different dialect. English has about five dialects. Right. And I'm like, I don't know. And he brought me and he dropped me in the middle of an onion field.
In the middle of a field.
And I'm like, oh, that's not. And I just, oh my gosh. And then somebody came out with a long rifle, as in he was dressed in uniform. He had a long rifle and I got challenged. I'm like, well, that's a good sign. So then my name was on that list. So they escorted me inside. And the base itself no longer exists because in the UK, what they did is they built that tunnel. And the tunnel actually went underneath that barrack, underneath that undeclared military base. And the base itself was there during World War I and World War II. And all of the high-valued assets or people that they were going to interrogate, that's where they would bring them back in the UK. That's where everything was housed. And it was like coming to the mothership within the intelligence branch, as in the core branch. This is where it all happened. And it was like, wow. And the Brits have a different way of training people. There's no luxury. The course starts on a Sunday and ends on a Sunday. It was 7 days. There's no weekend. So Saturday, I was there before. We were inside the mess, the sergeants and warrants officers mess. And they were playing bingo. They were very excited. They were playing bingo. I was just at the bar having, I'm going to go from left to right and start testing all the different liquids that they had available. And it was just surreal. But then day one of the training, my gosh, the first hour we reported, the first hour we were stripped naked, thrown into a cell, and then interrogated.
Oh my God.
Zoe, that was not on the curriculum. No. It never came to my mind that I was going to be stripped naked and interrogated. I thought, you fake it, you pretend, but the realism that they put into this was quite a shock for me because I got yelled at for 9 minutes nonstop. I don't know if the guy actually ever took a breath. It's just nonstop. He was so close. I knew what he had for breakfast. And then it's like, okay, get dressed, get back in the classroom. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I here? I'm in over my head. I should never have come here. What was I thinking? Because I have no idea how to pass this course. I'm the only Canadian. I don't want to be the return home and that you failed the course, but I was clueless. I was acluistic, one without a clue of how am I going to survive this course. I was student number 3 and they debriefed us. And then when it came to me, I was amazed. I was amazed by how much information that he had captured, or he was in my brain and he was in my head. And how did you know this? Because I didn't answer one question. I didn't answer one question, but all the micro movements and the closing of my fist and my breathing he knew my triggers, like he was getting ready for the second interrogation. And he attributed this to something called BSA, behavioral symptom analysis. And then I became a student right there. Tell me more about this. And that's where I think I got my little, my hook or my interest in understanding human dynamics, the tendencies and the people have. And how do you go about discerning one's preferred communication style? How do you read the different personas? How can you decode one's preferred, their human capital? Taking more of a positive approach to this than a negative approach to this. It was a defining moment that time, because if you've never experienced that, it left a mark. But it also opened my appetite to learning more about this whole industry and better understanding it, because I thought they were masterful at it. That was my first trip. I had 5 trips in the UK, but that was my first time visiting spy school in the UK, and really a defining moment, I guess. It would have been just the experience of this. And then when I went back to our unit, I was able to take this and then to also apply it in our day-to-day activity without stripping people or interrogating people. But I did design a program on how to interview, debrief, and elicit information. So elicitation techniques, all based on BSA principles and strategies. So I was very grateful for that experience.
Wow. So much I want to know. Okay. First question. You mentioned right at the beginning that you know now, because you know yourself better, why you were best suited to become a spy. What did you learn about yourself that now you recognize, like, oh, that's why I gravitate towards that particular kind of world?
Well, another defining moment was when I attended an accreditation or a certification program to be a recognized certified human behavior consultant. I was still working within the intelligence branch. I was specializing in the field of human intelligence. And I came up on, there was a book that I had received. And in the back, it had a website. The book was Positive Personality Profile. And the website was personalityinsights.com. And I went to that website and I saw that there was a program, a certification. And I'm like, well, this is my lane. I'm opening up this capabilities for the Canadian Armed Forces. I'm pioneering this. And I made a business case with them that I should go and take this accreditation. At the event, it was a 3-day program back then with Dr. Robert A. Rome. And we did an audit. We did an assessment in regards to determining the level of intensities of the 4-temperament model, also referred to as the DISC model of human behavior. D for dominant, I for inspiring, S for supportive, C for cautious. And what I realized that I am a double dose of task. In other words, that I'm a DC style blend. I have all 4 traits in me to a lesser or greater degree, but I am definitely more dominant, direct, demanding, cautious, calculating, conscientious. So that style blend fitted very well for the military and also for the intelligence branch. Because in time, what has happened is that I got accredited. I went for advanced behavioral studies. I designed a speakers boot camp based on personalities for that company. I became their training director at one point. I designed a program called the Master Trainer Program for that company. And I came to realize that because I do all the training with government, and I also train their trainers, that in the intelligence branch, if your C trait, that trait that's more reserved and very task-oriented, that loves the analysis and the details and measure twice, cut once. They're motivated by quality answers, excellence, or value is non-negotiable. If you're going to stack boxes with excellence. So if that trait is not your primary trait in the intelligence community, 90% of the time it's your secondary trait. So with all the agencies that I've worked with, whether it's law enforcement or CSIS, RCMP, Revenue Canada, if that C trait is not your primary, 90% of the time is your secondary trait. So I'm just wired for that industry, or I'm wired for that type of vocational direction. I wish I had learned this information when I was in high school, because that would have been appropriate for me then to make wiser decisions based on how I'm wired, my strengths, so that I could select a career path that's based on how I am wired and not based on where my friends are going to university and, I'll go there too. And then the second year you change your master, you take something else because it's not a great fit. It would have been nice, but then I would not have had a fight with dad and I would have not gone down that path. And I'm a big believer that your mess in life, your mess is your mission. Your mess is your mission. I've always struggled in understanding myself. I wish I had this information before. And I learned it a little bit down the road by necessity. And now it's almost like it's a mission to share with others what I've learned so that they don't have to wait till they're in their 40s to learn about this. So I was able to educate my daughter, my son, so that when they were ready to leave the house, they left under control and not out of a fight with their father. So it's a great tool. I think people are at a disadvantage in business or in their personal life if they don't have a model of reference. There's 100 models that exist. The NEO, the MMPI, Strength Finder, Enneagrams, Archetypes. It's like there's many tools out there. Pick one, master it, put in the time and the effort, but find one. I like this one because in psychology is referred to as the wellness model, looking at the traits under control and not looking at dysfunctionalities, but on the positive side of the model. And that drew me to that model. Now I have 30,000 hours, I think, in studying, equipping, and teaching and equipping people with this tool.
So, Master Spy, you've known me for about 20 minutes. Where do I sit on the disc?
Well, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Go for it.
If you had to choose right now, and you're not locked into this, and you can change your mind over lunch, is your preference of operating in a more of an outgoing environment or more of a reserve environment?
Depends. So writing is definitely reserved on my own, but I get juiced up and jazzed in the leadership programs that I run. So with people.
So you're leading a little bit like more on the outgoing side versus on the reserve side?
Probably. Yeah.
A little
I
bit.
get energized around people.
Okay. So this refers to as what I'm doing here. I'm decoding human capital. It's the 2 P's to decoding human capital. There's always a pace perspective, and then you cannot not communicate. So that's more of an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming saying. So you're leaning. That doesn't mean that you don't have. It's just that you get your energy. You tend to operate more in our energy, so a little bit more outgoing. Now I have 2 choices. Task versus people. So in your day-to-day, in regards to your orientation, your preference, when you wake up in the morning, do you think about all the things you need to do today? Or do you think about all the people you're going to interact and meet throughout your day?
Oh, people.
People. So those 2 questions, the pace perspective and the priority perspective, helps us to find a quadrant, a start point for us to engage into a conversation. The important thing here is not to make an absolute. Like based on the model, it would identify the I persona, inspiring, influencing, inducing. That's a great attribute. It's all about the people. They are often referred to as the people magnet. We're naturally drawn to. They have a lot more energy. They come into the room. They bring that energy. They have a great imagination. They can think outside the box. What if? They influence. They have a different leadership style. There's 4 leadership style. So for the company, I was trying to make a point that it's not all the D persona, dominant, direct, demanding, that are the leaders. No, as in we lead differently. Some lead, do I have it here? Your audience won't see this, but you're going to be able to see this. So we lead differently, right? So this rectangular box represents a platoon. It represents 30 people. And you see there's a dot in the front. So the D persona, they tend to lead directively. Let's go, follow me. But the I persona, right? So that's the platoon again, but they are in the center, the dot's in the center. So they tend to lead inspirationally. They influence people to get on board with them to move the group ahead. From an S perspective, the high S, they lead supportively. They're in the back. They're pushing the team. They're pushing the group to the finish line with words of affirmation. They make sure nobody's left behind. They lead supportively. But from a C perspective, they tend to be on the side. They can see the front, they can see the middle, they can see the back. They lead carefully, making sure everybody's at the right place at the right time, following the proper procedures. So leadership has 4 different styles of leadership. And a leader, for me, a leader is not one who looks behind to see who's following them. A leader is one who recognizes the environment that they're in and adapts his or her leadership style towards that environment in order to move the group ahead. It's not hard for me to be in front of a platoon or in front of a group. Let's go, follow me. I'm wired for that. It's not hard for me to be on the side, making sure all the procedures. I'm wired for that. I struggle being the center of the group, influencing. I struggle being in the back, pushing, because, oh my gosh, these are my lowest traits. So if you don't have a model or reference, you often find yourself at a disadvantage, whether it's in business and in your personal life. With this model, for me, when I empower people with this model and accredited and certified, well, now you have, it's a force multiplier. It multiplies your capabilities. And that's the value for any professional to have a model or reference, because it will empower people for them to maximize or to do their best and where they find themselves. So when this was created, the leadership clues and cues, if you're strong in the I quadrant, so this might be your case, what happens if you have a JJ on your team and JJ is a high D? Well, here's your strengths, here's our struggles, and here's some strategies to working with JJ or to influence JJ to a desired outcome. So it's a little cheat sheet. It's almost illegal to use it, but it does give an edge for managers or leaders to better understand their human capital and see that people don't do things to you. They do things for themselves. And if you understand their basic needs by decoding their preferred communication style, they'll say yes to you more often. Just learning to say the same thing in a different way. It's just different.
So you pick me accurately, because I've done the disc multiple times and I'm always sitting on the outer edge of the eye. That's my natural style.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if you are, because there's 41 different style blends. So the different companies, there's about 50 companies that will teach or run certification programs around the globe. Personality Insights is one out of the hundreds that are out there, 50 that are out there. And not everyone has 41 style blends. Some will have 29. Some has 16. Some only look into 4 style blends. But Personality Insights, with the research, there's 41. Now, there is a style blend. It's the IC style blend, the inspiring, cautious style blend. So I'm like, I'd be curious to see if where that C trait resides, because writing requires to focus in that area. But then how do you recharge? How do you re-energize? And quite often, hobbies will provide me a clue and cue as to which quadrant that they find themselves in. Because the I, to recharge the I, they need social activities. Going for lunch with a friend just re-energize, just brings back that energy, gets an extra 2 hours in your day. COVID was hard for the I persona and the S persona, because they need the energy from people. D's and C's loved it. Oh, fantastic. I don't have to meet with people. I just get to do my work, my job. And they just, because they prefer a written form of communication than an interactive form of communication. And it's just the tendencies people have. So, but we're in a similar. Do you specialize a lot with archetypes?
I don't, in terms of using a methodology to look at archetypes, no, but I have written a lot about archetypes. I've written about them in 2 of my books.
It's a great tool.
It is. I mean, all these tools are great. Like trying to understand yourself and mapping your characteristics and your preferences is essential for being a great people leader and understanding yourself a little bit better. So yes, I'm high I. And the fact that you say that DC is probably where you need to be for a spy confirms that I would be a terrible spy.
Oh, you know who makes the best?
No.
The S.
The S. Yeah, I can see that.
Non-threatening, Non-threatening, as in people confessed. A complete stranger tells them so much information. My spouse, my wife, my business partner, she is strong in the S quadrant. We're opposite attract when they're far, and they attack when way up close. So when you don't have a model of reference, it's quite interesting. We do retreats now for disc workshops for couples, where we do a workshop on I'm glad I married you, I'm still glad I married you, and then we talk about the personas and better understanding. Now, we go to a trip in Atlanta, and I say to Judy, now don't make eye contact with people, because people dump all their problems on her for some reason. For me, I have this like I have this aura around me like a force field. Nobody cuts the line in front of me. Nobody comes into that zone. But for her, they will always cut. When we went to Atlanta, I saw her like she was drained. Like it's just a 4-hour flight, but she was drained. And I'm like, how many people? And she knew exactly the question. She goes, 3. What happened? She's sitting, right? She's having a conversation with a gentleman. And, when you're flying, is this business or pleasure? Are you coming or are you going? She just wants to have a conversation. Well, the gentleman's bringing the ashes of his father who just passed away. Oh my gosh. And now it's like, you go down that road, and it was just heavy, and she absorbs, right? They had just absorbed. So it was like this, the three people that she met. And then when we arrived in Atlanta, she just needed to take a nap. But that's how they recharge. Just take a nap, she'll recharge, as in they need non-cognitive activity to bring them back under control. So we all have these. But this is how we can protect ourselves from ourselves. If we have a strong sense of self, it's a good start point, and understanding why you do the things you do. And then it's like, don't take things personal. It's just different.
Okay. So let's come back to spying, because I really want to know a little bit more about this. So you started your career, well, you had the experience in the UK, and then you went on to be an operative or a contact handler. You said not an operative, but a contact handler. What is that whole life like? Like, is it James Bond? Is it something different?
We tend to label what we don't understand. So we have the whole James Bond series, Mission Impossible. Uncle is a series also in the UK. And that's sort of like the image that we have. It's cool, it's sexy, it's glamorous. It's not at all like that from my perspective, because being an intelligence operator or intelligence officer, staff officer, it's a job, it's a profession, just like any profession. But we tend to label what we don't understand. We don't refer ourselves as spies. We refer to ourselves as an intelligence analyst, an intelligence officer, and an intelligence operator. That's just the title, the terminology. Now, we do look different sometimes out there. Now, for us in the military, we were in uniform. So I went back to the UK, back to spy school, but a different place, because that base did not exist when it was time. And it was a multinational. So we had 7 different nationalities in the Chicksands. So if you check where Chicksands is well declared. It's a military base. And we went to Chicksands, and that's where we did the course prior to deploying in Bosnia. So 7 different nationalities. We're learning all the mechanics, but they never taught us anything about personalities. They would say that you need to establish rapport. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, you just do rapport, and then they give you the definition of the word rapport. Okay, but how do you do that? Well, you just do rapport. You have to have rapport. And they never provided sort of like that human dynamic factor of, well, how do you establish and maintain rapport with people? So every time you interact with people, I've found that you either complete or compete with that interaction. When I was deployed in Bosnia, well, there's the Croats, there's the Serbs, and then there's Muslims, and I'm supposed to build relationships with those ethnicities. And we have requirements, intelligence requirements, and then we have priority intelligence requirements, PIR and IR. We have a whole series of questions that the commanding officer wants answers. So who might we connect with to answer these questions? So you're very proactive, going to set a meeting and booking a meeting, and then booking a meeting from a meeting and moving forward and building your database of informants, if you wish, getting them to say yes to you. So there's some influencing, and influence is for a win-win, to manipulate is for personal gain. So there's a fine line in regards to what we were doing. We were living in the local community, which is like we'd never do it, in uniform. The safe house, which was not really safe because it's like it was open to anybody, could just walk into our place and blew it up. But back then, that was sort of like the environment that we're in. It was multinational. And English is the working language. Well, in Canada, we may speak two languages, French and English. In the States, maybe English and Spanish. In the European countries, it's quite often they'll speak 4 to 6 different languages. You know, they almost all of them know German, and English will be one of the last one that they learn. So English is the working language. Then it's like, oh my gosh, did you understand what I meant for you to understand? See, there's a challenge. And our commanding officer, British thick accent, I'm not going to do it justice, I'm pretty sure. He had the whole town meeting, like everybody, all the operatives or all the contact handlers were all together. And then he said in his briefing, I know you think you understand what I just said, but I'm not really sure that what you understand is what I meant for you to understand, laddies. Do you understand? And I'm just looking around, wow, this is going to be a long 6 months. I'm pretty sure it's English. I've just been there. And it was just like surreal. Everybody wants to talk. Everybody wants to talk all the time. You just have to find their hot button and get them to share their story, their side of things.
What do you mean everybody wants to talk?
Everybody has a story.
Okay.
Everybody has their experience that they want. It's like they don't want to be Mr. and Mrs. Invisible. There was some injustice that was happening. You know, they want to have a listening ear, and you have to discern between that. Is this a value or not? And the way that I would ask questions, well, is that your opinion or your belief? Because everybody has an opinion on things. But when they would say, well, that's my belief, they'll take action over a belief. People don't go to war over an opinion, but people will go to war over a belief. And that was my way of discerning, as in, okay, should we continue that conversation? Because they may take action on this. So that's worth digging into and then reporting on this so that our commanding officers can make informed decisions as to where to apply the resources. Because the difference between Cyprus, which is peacekeeping, the blue beret, and NATO in regards to peacemaking, we will make peace. I like that one. That one's more directive. It spoke to me as in, no, we're going to. Because back then it was an I4 implementation force that took control. And then that was British led. And then 3 months after, because my tour happened to cross over, was S4. That was an American-led stabilizing force. So implementing first, and then we were stabilizing and keeping or maintaining the peace in that area. And Mostar was where I played. And then we live in Medjugorje, which is a religious site over there. The claim to fame of Medjugorje is a religious site of 3 little girls. The Virgin Mary appeared to 3 little girls on top of a mountain. And then now it's a pilgrimage every year. That place just keeps on growing and growing and growing. And all the bad people, all the bad guys, live there because it's safe to live. So they would live there and they would play in downtown Mostar. We'd be chasing them there. And then at night, you see them in the coffee shops. Tomorrow I'll get you. Yeah. Dobro jutro. Yeah. So it was quite fascinating. But everybody had a story. My first case study, as in, okay, you're there, you've been trained. I was the only one officially trained to be a contact handler when I came to the unit. Is that a blessing or a curse? Here we go again, right? So you don't force yourself, don't implement, just go with the flow and don't try to tell them how to do things and just adapt. Your time will come where you can leave your mark. And it happened. And then they gave me a hard case right off the bat. They said, here you go. You need to build a relationship with the gentleman that we branded him as the self-declared mayor of Mostar. He wasn't the mayor. Zoe, he wasn't the mayor. But he was acting as he was the mayor. He was the Al Capone. It was his Obstina. He ran the municipality. So he's a thug, and he profited tremendously throughout the black market during the war. and I have to meet this guy, and I have to get him to say yes to me. So what helped me was, yes, the training at Spy School in the UK, as in you get the mechanics, but you can't just leave that. You have to go and be proactive and have an appetite for reading, right? Leaders are readers. So I deep dived into a book called Personality Plus by Florence Whittower, and she calls them choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic melancholies. Medical terms, but it's a four temperament model of human behavior. It was hard to remember the names or the words. Okay, so I'm a choleric melancholy or choleric phlegmatic, but the description, I got it, but the names, it was hard to teach this and for people to get this. That's why I like the simplicity of The Four Temperament by Marsden, because he just puts some letters. Yeah, and then the letters is a certain culture. And when you go to that country, that culture, you have to speak a different way. So that persona, I went S. I went, whenever in doubt, when you can't read the other person, you can't discern their preferred communication style. Whenever in doubt, go S. They're the nicest people in the general population. So just be the nicest people. And he would stop me. He would put his hand up and he would say, I know who you are and I know what you do. And I'm trying to go back with my cover story and get some credibility. And, when you self-edify yourself, it's kind of hard. And then again, he raised his hand, right? He bypassed the interpreter and he spoke English to me. I know who you are and I know what you do. All right, then let's get down to business. And I went straight into D quadrant because I saw that he wanted to be communicated in a firm matter. That's the D persona. Now, the I, they want to be communicated in a fun matter. The S in a friendly matter, and then the C in a factual matter when connecting with people matters. So if you can just remember the two P's of decoding one's preferred communication style, now you have a start point of a quadrant and learn to say the same thing in a firm, fun, friendly, or factual matter. So that assists you into engaging into a conversation. And for me, you can imagine this. Zoe, I'm going to be evaluated by my ability to build relationship with people when those are my lowest traits. I'm not a people-oriented type of guy. I'm a task-oriented type of guy. So it's a learnable skill. Thank God it's a learnable skill. And for me, I'm like, okay, I have to build a relationship. Okay, before I can build a relationship, I have to have a conversation. Okay, before I have a conversation, I need to have good quality questions. So I memorized the 10 most effective feel-good ice-breaking questions because you are more natural at this than I am. I'm not wired for this, but it's a learnable skill. I can learn how. I can spend some time. Dr. Robert Rome, who's my mentor since 1999, he's strong in the I quadrant, just like you're strong in the I quadrant. I study him, how he speaks and how he interacts. And it's like, oh, I like this. I like that. Oh, I'll do this next time. It's a learnable skills. I liked it so much, the 10 questions, that I've actually now have a copy of it. As in, if people want to have it, you can go to the website, download the copy of it.
What's your website? Just tell me right now, and we'll put that in the show notes as well.
TheRetiredSpy.com. Mm-hmm.
Which has a bit of ring to it than the retired intelligence officer.
Well, I kept on being, when I left, right? I'm an interpersonal skills expert. That's sort of like the lane that I'm in. And when I was going to networking events, because I had retired from the military and I started my own training company, and people would say, who are you talking to? Oh, that's JJ. He used to be a spy. And they love saying that for some reason. And I was like, I've never branded myself as a spy. We never even think about that. Oh, that's JJ. He used to be an operative. An operative? And then you refer back to the movies and it's like, well, no. When I came to find a brand, as in brand identity, there's a British colleague who wrote a book and he had the drink and drive to determine your branding. I think drink and drive. Well, you got my attention. What's that all about? So in your lane, here are all these words. So pick out 3 words that fits into your lane. Well, I had cool, sexy, exclusive, as in the spy, in the intelligence. That's cool, it's sexy, exclusive. That's like the James Bond. Okay. Now think about a drink. Well, okay, James Bond, martinis. I'm not a martini guy. the Daniel Craig series, he had Hunnigan. Hunnigan. Oh, wait a minute. Hunnigan. Oh, yeah. It's a cool looking. It's exclusive. It's sexy looking. Okay. Hunnigan. Right. And then the second exercise, think about a driving vehicle, a vehicle that relates to, well, the Aston Martin. But you lived in Canada. You can't have an Aston Martin in Canada. My gosh, it wouldn't last the winters in there. But Daniel Craig in his series, Land Rover. Land Rover. Now that's cool, sexy, and it's exclusive. They're very expensive. I had to pass my British license, and I passed my British license when I was in the UK in a Land Rover. So I am like, okay, perfect. Hunnigan, Land Rover. Then it says, now go and look to see how Hunnigan advertised does their marketing and how Land Rover advertised and does their marketing. And use that to inspire your brand versus copying everybody else's brand. I'm like, nice. So everything from our website has to be cool, sexy, and exclusive. Or at least have that experience and that feel. So in time, what you're going to see on our website, we're going to have test your skills. So if you ever have an opportunity to go to the States, there's a spy museum. Zoe, half a day easy.
Where's the Spy Museum?
In Washington, D.C.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah. They've moved to a brand new location. It's even bigger. And when you go in, you can take a fictitious name, as in you can take an identity, and you're going to be tested throughout the museum. So you take, Andropov Popov. Okay, I'm Andropov Popov, and I read his where he was born, how old he is, and all that. And then you go to another station later down. You're going to be tested, right? So you come to a checkpoint, and they're asking you questions, and then you have to answer. Perfect. Then they give you even more information. So now you have to build on the lie. So you're building, anyways, there's 8 stations. I got killed on station 3. the screen turned red. It had those big X marks. I'm like, I didn't answer correctly because it's the finer details. I'm like, I wasn't paying attention. I'll focus better next time. So, but it was interesting. It was fun. And they had a lot of good branding ideas. I have my business card is a coin. So this is a decoder coin. So you're seeing it on the screen. It has the website, but it weighs so much. But also in the back, it actually has the model.
Fantastic.
It has the model, as in once you go to that D country, that culture is outgoing and task oriented. So talk in a firm matter. So it becomes, and they're all marked, so they're all unique. It's only one number in there, so you have your own operative number. And people have a hard time getting rid of it because they keep it. But it's a challenge coin. If I see you and I take mine and I pull it out and you don't have yours, guess what? Guess who's paying lunch? So it has that little military background. Initially, I had poker chips. And the thing was, don't gamble on your relationships. Connecting with people does not have to be left to chance. So it was more like a little way of getting people to think. And people were, I was using it to mark my ball when I was playing golf. And I'm like, hey, I can buy this and deduct this as business cards. Okay. So now we have these all, because it has a certain weight to it. If we cross path, you may be receiving one of those.
Fantastic. JJ, are you ready for the Fast Five?
All right. No.
Too bad. We're going.
Okay.
What's the future technology you most want right now?
A better understanding of AI, the artificial intelligence, and how to positively use it in my business moving forward.
Okay. Best tip you ever got for leadership?
In the absence of leadership, you have to become the leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Step into the void. Love it. Number 3, what's one problem in the workplace you'd love to wave a magic wand and be fixed right now?
Self-discovery, as in there's too many people that don't understand or don't know themselves and how to protect themselves from themselves. So a stronger sense of self.
Awesome. And number 4, thumbs up or thumbs down? Who's a leader you want to give a thumbs up to, or a leader you want to give a thumbs down to?
Let's go positive. Thumbs up. Dr. Robert A. Rome, a big influencer in my life since 1999. Opened my eyes to how to do just the next right thing.
Very nice. Number 5, favorite leadership book or podcast?
I'm old school, so I'm going to go with the one that influenced me to get an appetite in reading, which is the first one was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich is just, it feeds both my C and my D trait. Think, C trait, grow rich,
D trait.
They're like, yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Well, that was pretty fast 5. So that was the fast 5.
Fantastic. I survived.
You did. You survived. No t-shirts yet for the fast 5. The Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast is proudly sponsored by the Amplifiers Academy. It is an online self-paced leadership development program that you can join at any time and progress at your pace. There are very short video lessons, great checklists and resources and recommendations and book summaries, all there to help boost your leadership thinking and abilities. We focus on leading strategy, leading culture, leading change, and leading performance. So if you want a go-to resource that can help boost your strategic abilities immediately, check us out, Amplifiers Academy, on the zoerouth.com website. See you there. JJ, is there a question that I haven't asked that you'd like me to ask and you'd like to answer?
No, not really. I think we've addressed. There's a misconception in regards to the whole. There's always been an attraction to the word spy, and I think it's one of the oldest profession that exists. Sales, prostitution, and spying. I think it's one of the oldest. Even the time of Moses, he sent out the spies. It would have been me to spy in the land. So I would have had a job way back then. But there's a misconception, right? Because of media and how they portray the James Bond series or the Mission Impossible, the glamour. It's almost impossible when they're traveling from different countries. But it's very captivating to watch and to see all the widgets and the gadgets. Like my ring doesn't do anything. my watch has no laser. I'm not so good at playing poker. So there's a lot of misconception. They're fun to watch, but there are also documentaries that are very good on Netflix on the whole spy industry, which has more realism in it, as in less glamour. It takes a lot of time to become an operative. I just had a small window in that area, but there's others that they have a whole lifetime in that industry. So it's just so people know that there's a lot of misconception out there, and just look for more of the documentary history than the Hollywood version of the spy industry.
Well, thank you for that. I will endeavor to do both because the spy thrillers are still good and realism, why not? Temper the fiction with the reality. That suits me as an author as well. JJ, this has been really fantastic. I've loved your insights. It was amazing to hear about your stories as a spy, as an retired spy, and all the insights you had about people, really, and which is a core to leadership. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Well, that was super fun for me. I really love the spy world. I love reading spy thrillers, watching spy movies, and it was awesome to meet a real live spy or intelligence agent. So my takeaway actually was to practice saying the same message in the 4 methodologies or the 4 ways of giving a message, to express it by being firm for the directive style or dominant style, I should say. The fun way of expressing something for the I influence or inspirational people. The friendly methodology for the supportiveness, steadiness people. And a factual way for the conscientious, cautious people. Firm, fun, friendly, and factual. I think that's a really powerful way to learn how to channel your message so that it lands the way that people want to receive their information. My tip today comes from Composure, How Centered Leaders Make the Biggest Impact. This is my first book. And JJ was talking about archetypes. And in this particular book, I have 3 sets of archetypes that I encourage leaders to explore and balance. The first one are the archetypes around wisdom. That's the crone and the sage, the male-female archetypes of wisdom. And then we have the archetypes for compassion, mother and father. And then the archetypes for governance, queen and king. Now, what I say about all that is that we need to balance those archetypes. We need to have the energy and focus of each of them. So for wisdom, ask yourself, as the crone, am I guarding without being obstructive? For the sage, am I instructive without being overbearing? Am I helpful or too distant? For compassion, asking yourself about these archetypes. For the mother, am I nurturing without smothering? As the father, am I protecting without controlling? And for governance, as the queen, am I serving without arrogance or jealousy? King, am I ruling without being a tyrant? Through balancing archetypes, individuals and their teams can grow safely within the boundaries and structures set by the balanced leader. Yes, so we can use archetypes to help balance our approach, and JJ's insights around knowing self and knowing others can help us balance our communication and approach as well. So I hope you enjoyed that interview with the retired spy. And coming up next on the show, we have a solo-sode. So it's me going deep and dirty. No, we're not going to do deep and dirty. We're going deep on an aspect of leadership that will be of value to you, reflecting on all the interviews I've done over the last few weeks. Okay. In the meantime, maybe pick up a copy of Composure from my website, or if you want a personally signed copy, or from any of the other book retailers. In the meantime, live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast. To find out more about leadership of the future or to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.